Hey everyone, welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into something really specific but fascinating. Shari'ah Standard number 28, banking services in Islamic banks. It's more than just rules. It's a window into how a whole financial system is built around ethical principles.
Absolutely.
We're going to break down what Islamic banks can do service-wise, what they can't, and crucially, why, the thinking behind it. And yeah, our source is the standard itself, Shari'ah Standard number 28, the Arabic text. Think of it as the official blueprint, our mission to kind of unpack the core ideas and maybe some surprising details in how these banks operate.
And what's really striking, I think, is just how detailed these standards are.
Yeah.
They're incredibly specific, guiding every operation to ensure, Sharia compliance and integrity in all transactions. It's quite the framework.
Okay, so let's map this out. Standard 28, what's its scope? What does it actually cover? And maybe just as important, what does it not cover?
Good question. So the standard really zeroes in on banking services that don't involve lending or debt. That concept, mudayana in Arabic.
Oh, right. No debt creation.
Exactly. It's about services offered directly to clients or, on their behalf, basically to help with financial activities without getting into interest. Facilitation, really.
It's pretty explicit about what's out, isn't it?
Very. It clearly excludes lending services, obviously, but also investment services or anything that's already got its own dedicated standard.
Like currency trading, cards, accounts, profit distribution, sukuk. Those Islamic financial certificates?
Precisely. Each of those falls under different Sharia standards.
Which really shows how organized the whole system is. Everything's cross-referenced, almost like different chapters in a code.
It is. It's a comprehensive system.
Okay, so we know what's not the focus. What kinds of services are allowed under Standard 28? It mentions fees, right? Fixed fees or percentages.
That's right. Permissible services can be offered for a fixed fee. That's a jarm, makor, sometimes a percentage based on what the service involves, nisbamin mathal al-khidmat.
Okay.
And this is where we see the ethical structure take shape, defining these specific services.
So let's dive into those. What's first?
Let's start with custody services, khidmat al-ifa.
Okay, safekeeping.
Essentially, yes, the bank can accept approved documents, things like that, for safekeeping. It's treated as an amana, a trust.
Good trust, right?
And the crucial part is the bank must return the items exactly as they were received whenever the client asks.
And they can charge for this.
Yes. Charging a fee for this safekeeping service is explicitly allowed. It compensates the bank for looking after the assets, not for using them.
Makes sense. A fee for stewardship. What about acting as an agent, like representing a client?
Yep, that's covered too. It's called agency for contracting services, or khidmat al-takil bil-taqwid.
Okay.
A client can appoint the bank to act as their agent in a specific contract or transaction.
And again, a fee is permissible.
Yes, the standard clearly states they can charge a fee for providing this agency service. Again, it's about facilitation for a transparent fee.
Clear delineation. Now, there's one that sounds a bit more complex. Subscription management services, khidmat tanzima al-iktitab. What's the deal there?
Right. This involves the bank acting as an agent, usually for founders during public offerings, or maybe for existing shareholders issuing new shares.
Okay, like managing an IPO process or something?
Sort of, yes. And they can charge a fee for these services, but, and this is a really critical distinction, that fee cannot include compensation for arranging an underwriting commitment with someone else.
Ah, so managing the subscription is fine, but arranging the backstop guarantee, that's different.
Exactly. And furthermore, for the underwriting commitment itself, the promise to buy unsold shares, the standard says no fee is allowed. Only reimbursement for actual expenses incurred.
Wow, why is that distinction so important?
Well, it's fundamental. The underwriting commitment involves a guarantee, a kind of promise. In Islamic finance, you have to keep that separate from a fee-based service to avoid anything that looks like interest or inappropriate risk transfer.
I see.
The bank gets paid for the work it does managing the process, not for taking on a financial risk or obligation that could resemble debt.
That precision really highlights the ethical boundaries.
Okay, what about things like doing studies or handling payments?
Yes, two more categories here. First, studies and consultancy services, khidmat ijra al-diyasat wa al-istishar.
Feasibility studies, that kind of thing?
Exactly. Or studies related to issuing financial instruments, or even acting as an agent for clients and services related to property or goods.
And the fee structure.
Interestingly, these can be done with or without a fee. There's flexibility there.
Okay. And the other one, collection and payments.
Right. Collection and payment services, khidmat al-talz al-dawafa. This covers things like collecting money owed to clients, paying their bills, managing payroll, executing standing orders. Pretty standard banking stuff.
Yes, but again, these can also be offered with or without a fee.
But there's a big caveat, isn't there, about prohibited elements?
A crucial one. The standard mandates that the institution must refrain from collection or payment activities if the underlying transaction involves something prohibited maaf under Shari'ah.
So the bank acts as a sort of ethical gatekeeper. It won't facilitate transactions related to, say, alcohol or gambling.
Precisely. It's an active filter, ensuring the bank isn't involved in facilitating anything deemed unethical. It defines the moral compass of their operations.
That's a powerful point.
Yeah.
How does this ethical consideration play into basic account services, khidmat al-izman?
Well, banks can offer additional services to account holders' investment or current accounts if the client requests them. And yes, they can charge for these extra services.
Go ahead.
Providing free services to account holders is also perfectly fine. Quite common, actually.
Well, there's a special rule for current accounts, right?
Yeah.
Something about conditions.
Yes, this is key. Services provided to current account holders specifically must not be conditional or customarily expected. The Arabic term is malshe or fun.
Meaning
Meaning the bank can't offer free services or perks because you have a current account, implying they're profiting from holding those non-interest-bearing funds. It reinforces the idea that a current account is purely a trust, amana relationship, not something the bank leverages for hidden profit.
that really ties back to the core principle of avoiding interest in any form. Okay, one more specific service. Safe deposit box services, khidmat kaza el amanat. How does that work?
This is structured as a lease. The client leases the use of the safe deposit box.
Simple enough. But what about liability? The contents.
Here's another fine distinction. The standard says the bank is responsible for the physical integrity of the box itself. They have to keep it secure.
Makes sense.
However, it explicitly states the bank does not guarantee the contents of the box.
Unless
There's transgression or negligence on the bank's part, TADI or TACA.
So the bank is responsible for the container. But what you put inside is your responsibility, unless the bank messes up somehow.
Exactly. Liability is tied very specifically to fault and direct responsibility, not just because they hold the box. It's about defined trust and accountability.
Very clear boundaries. And you mentioned earlier that some services just point to other standards.
That's right. Standard 28 wraps up by listing services governed elsewhere, like card services points you to Standard 2 for debit cards and others for credit cards.
Okay.
Zakat account services, that's Standard 35. Guarantee services are covered by Standard 5. And checks services fall under Standard 16.
So it's like a hub connecting to other specific rules.
Precisely. It demonstrates how interconnected and comprehensive these standards aim to be. Almost every facet of banking has its specific Sharia guidelines. It's a whole ecosystem of ethical finance rules.
Right. So recapping this deep dive into Standard 28, we've seen Islamic banks offer a really diverse range of non-lending services. And everything is meticulously defined. How fees work, the absolute need to avoid anything prohibited madar, and these unique conditions for things like custody and safe boxes.
And if you connect it all, you see this consistent effort to build a system based on fairness, transparency, and crucially, avoiding interest. It permeates everything down to the most basic service.
So what's the takeaway for you, the listener? Well, next time you use any banking service, maybe pause and think about the principles behind it.
Yeah.
This look at Standard 28 really shows just how detailed and, well, principled an alternative financial system can be. And that leaves us with something to chew on, given how incredibly specific these rules are, defining what banks can do and especially what they cannot charge for, like that underwriting commitment. What does that tell us about the deep-down philosophical priorities of Islamic finance versus conventional banking? How might those differences fundamentally change the actual relationship between a bank and its customers? Is it just transactional or something more like an ethical partnership?